Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being part of today's webinar. I'm really excited to get started, but before we do, I would like to go over a few items. First, my name is Pete Sachs, and I'm part of Avastone Technologies, one of the customer service managers, and I primarily focus on our clients' use of Microsoft Dynamics GP. Also on the line with me is Miss Tara Higgins. Tara is a Microsoft Dynamics GP technical consultant. Good morning, Tara.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Tara is going to talk about SmartList and the new SmartList Designer for Dynamics GP. And she'll describe some of the tips and tricks for using SmartList and demonstrate the powerful features in the new SmartList Designer. Our objectives today is to, number one, learn tips and tricks for the new SmartList Designer, or for SmartList, but then also discuss some of the powerful features in the new SmartList Designer. Now, this will be a brief overview, and we are glad to have a personal conversation with you after this webinar. But we do want your feedback. An evaluation form will follow that we do encourage that everyone does fill out. So without any further ado, let me pass the controls over to Tara. There you go, Tara. Thank you.
Thanks. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, today we're going to take a look at SmartList and SmartList Designer, as Pete mentioned. So currently what you can see on here is I am logged into Dynamics GP 2013 R2. This is the most recent version that we have out on the partner source and customer source. I am currently logged in as the SA user. So today you'll be able to see all the access into the entire system. So just be aware of, depending on what your roles and securities are with your organization, will determine what you will be able to see. Also on here that you'll see on my homepage is that I have a couple of new R2 features on here, is the time management and procurement on here. So I did want to mention that if you do have questions with the new GP 2013 R2 features and upgrade information, definitely reach out to your partner, Pete and Amy. They'll be happy to answer any questions for you. So just to give you a heads up on that. So we're going to spend our time inside of Dynamics GP today instead of really doing much of a PowerPoint. So we'll actually take a look and kind of see how the look and feel is. So SmartList is a great inquiry tool that you can use to access your accounting data. The SmartList window provides access to key data tables in Microsoft Dynamics GP, information such as customer and vendor records that can be accessed to the key tables. So let's open up SmartList. So to open it up, you go to Microsoft Dynamics GP, and then you click SmartList. So SmartList provides an option to zoom into windows, export information to Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word. It just helps make it easier to use the data that's collected inside of Microsoft Dynamics GP different ways, just to pull the information out. So for example, the SmartList will give you the ability to do a number of different things. So some of the examples would be create customer, vendor, and employee labels, reconcile receivables and payables to the general ledger, quickly checking which sales order processing invoice have not been posted, verify item quantities inventory. You can create a simple two-column chart of account list. The list goes on and on. These are just some examples off the top of my head that what you can use SmartList for. So we're going to take a look at using SmartList. I do want to mention, if you do have questions, there is a portion where you can chat. We will have a section at the end for questions as well if you do, but if you think of something right away and you need to type it in, you can. Otherwise, let's wait till the end. SmartList uses a predefined search criteria called objects. So, and that's going to make searching easy. The objects are organized and listed on the left-hand side of the SmartList window. They look like the folders over here on the left. Objects display by series are also known as the modules in the system. Then they're grouped, and when they're grouped, groups are expanded, each object is displayed in the group. So when you select the plus sign directly to the left of the folder, the object expands and you'll see a list of the customized views available for the object. So for example here, I expanded out the sales series, and so then I would be able to see a number of predefined ones in the system. But maybe you are focused on the financials, so you would go over to the financials area.
I don't see
so like
you know how to use
like I mentioned before, we based on your security roles in the system, will determine on what you would see in here. Because I am SA, I do see all my different modules or series in this list. So just kind of keep that in mind.
I can't get rid of that.
The default view, so when I look at the series and I expand out, let's say I'll expand out the customers, I'll see a number of different ones that are in the system here. The default one you'll see is the one marked with an asterisk on here. And then any other system-generated views will have an asterisk after the name. So like, for example, this average days to pay, there's an asterisk. So this is something that you get with the system, and it's just letting you know visually that it was something that came out of the box for you. The other thing that I wanted to mention is when you click on these smart lists, you will see some commonly used columns that we have in the system that are typically what people want to see, but we'll take a look at about adding additional information on there as well. So let's take a look at the average days to pay, for example. So if I click on this, you'll notice that now in GP 2013, with SP2, there's this favorites pane, and it is set to auto hide for me. So I have the capability now to maximize my screen and see more of the information, and it hides the navigation list. So if I wanted to do that, I can go to my SmartList options, favorites pane, and then I have this check mark to enable the auto hide. So if you don't want to do that, you can just unmark that as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention on here is that it has the increase and decrease width. So I can change the width on here from here, or if I wanted to, I can right click and I can decrease or right click and increase too if I wanted to be able to see more of my list. So inside of SmartList, we also have the capabilities of different sorting. So in this list of the average days to pay, what I can do is any of these column headers, I can click and it will resort my SmartList results. So if I click on city, for example, I can see that it's going to do a descending order for my city, and if I click on it again, it will do the descending version of it. So it will just sort based on which one I click on, and it will resort for me. We also have the capability of zooming into, let's say, another window. So you can highlight one of these results, and if I double click on it, it takes me into the customer maintenance window. What is great about this is just by a click of the button, it takes you to the window and you don't have to manually path out to it, or, hey, where was that window? How do I get to it? You can just double click on it as well. Some people use SmartList as a search mechanism to be able to get into their windows instead of using the lookup, but you can do either or. There's also the go-to feature in SmartList on here. So what you can do is click on the Go To button up on top, and in here there is some predefined go-tos that we have listed on the system. So what these are going to do is going to take you to other windows. So by default, when I showed the zoom portion of it, it took to what we had set to what I wanted to happen when I double click on the window. When I go to the go-to, here are the other ones listed. So let's say I wanted to go take a look at this customer's period summary inquiry. I can click on that, and from here I will be able to see my period summary just by a click of a button. So that is a really great feature by going to the go-to, and if I wanted to see the yearly summary inquiry, I can click on that as well. So it's point and click, and it's very easy to use. So now let's say this list is great, but now I am a sales manager. And being a sales manager, one of my responsibilities is I need a list of customers in the Chicago area with their name, address, city, state, and zip. What do I do? Where do I go get that information? So what I could do is I'm going to go over to the customers, and I'm going to click on my default SmartList. So in here, I have a list of all my customers that I have in the system. There is 105 on here that it showed that I came back for customers in my system. So one thing I could do is I could export this list to Excel, and if I wanted to, I could filter from there. But that just doesn't really seem to be too efficient for me. So what I'm going to actually do is use the SmartList option to search in the system here. So up on the top there is this search button, and you may have noticed on here the ribbon up top looks a little bit different. So with R2 it has a little bit of a different feel to it, but if you like the other version, what you're used to in the previous versions, you can change that on user preferences as well. But so if I click on search, I have the capability to do a number of different searches on here. So in my example, as a sales manager, that I needed to see the Chicago city, what I would do is use my lookup, and from here it gives me my list of columns that I have in my SmartList. So when I click city and click OK, then I can select a filter. So there's a number of different filters I can use with SmartList, and so I can do it contains, is equal to, begins with, is between, is not equal to, is greater than, and is less than. But for this example, we're going to do is equal to, so we can do Chicago. So I'm going to type in the word Chicago here. And when I hit OK, I'll be able to see my results go down to just the list of Chicago, and I have my 7 customers. But we can take that one step further. And let's say I want to look at the people, the customers that are in Chicago, but with a zip code of 60601. So what I would do from there is go back to my search, and I can add another search criteria. So I'm going to use the lookup again, and I'm going to scroll down and select zip and click OK. So in here I'm going to do is begins with, because when I looked at my list, I had some that just started with it, and then there's other numbers. So I'm going to do begins with, and I'm going to do the 60601 on here. From the SmartList, I also have the capabilities, so when I hit OK, I'll see that it will restrict down, and I see my 3. But I'm going to open up my search, and there is a couple other options that I can do if I wanted to. There is a search type option in here, and from the search type I can do match all, meaning it's going to look for everything that says Chicago and everything that begins with the 60601. But I also have the capability is match one or more. So with my different search definitions, I can say match, find anything that has this and or anything that has Chicago in there, and that would give me more results. But for this example, I wanted to make it a little bit more specific, so I'm going to say if it has both, then let's see who those customers are. The other thing in this window, I will see that there is a maximum records. So from here, I can, by default, the maximum records for the system to be displayed is 1,000. But let's say you have more than 1,000 customers in your system, you can increase the maximum number of records in here to be able to pull all the information in your system. So you do have the capabilities of that. The other button in here is the order by. If I click on the order by, this also gives me a more capability of searching. So, or not searching, I'm sorry, by ordering. So if I click address and I do insert, I can also have it to do the address by ascending or descending order if I wanted to do that. Or if I wanted it to sort, let's say, first sort on the address and then second sort on address 2, I can do that from here. So I have the capabilities of doing additional sorts besides doing by clicking on the heading. So I like currently how it's sorted by my customer name, so I'm just going to leave it that way. I also, in the search definition, you can use this field comparison. What that field comparison checkbox is going to do is, let's say you have customers who have a credit limit and you wanted to see if anybody, their customer balance is over their credit limit. So what you could do is you could mark this field comparison, and let's say my SmartList had the values of the credit limit and the customer balance on there. I could do compare these two together, so I would do credit limit and then customer balance. So when I click that checkbox, this changes to a lookup, and then I can look up by other fields. So in this example, it doesn't quite make sense, but I just also wanted to mention that you do have the capabilities of searching based on another field in the system and those results. You can also do match by case if you wanted to match the case of your criteria that's entered as well. So I'm going to put this back to Chicago on here. The other thing that I also wanted to mention that you have the capabilities of doing is, let's say you wanted to do a date range. If I had a field in this result, I could do is between, and what that's going to do is it's going to open up 2 boxes for me, and then if this column was a date, this will change to be able to do a lookup of a date. So it has a lot of features in the system here. So I'm going to switch back to Chicago. There is also a columns button. We will touch base on that on the other area, but you can add columns from here. Otherwise, you can add, I'm going to click OK. You can add multiple columns from the navigation pane up here, or the ribbon. If, let's say, I see I'm missing something on here, or maybe I don't want to see address 2, I can click on the columns button here, and I can click Add. And if I click Add, it opens up a number of other columns that I can add into the system. And I can, if I wanted to, click on, let's say, address 3 or address code, I can click the Control button and select multiple ones if I want. If I want to remove, let's say I don't want address 2, I can click Remove, and I can remove it off of here if I want. The other capabilities from this, maybe I don't like it called address 1, or maybe I don't like the customer's, say, customer number. I can take and change this and say customer number. So I have the capability of changing my display name if I want to make it user-friendly for me. If for some reason I change it and I don't want any of the changes, I can click the default button and it will set back to what I originally had with the system. I'm okay with all my columns that I have, so I'm just going to hit cancel on here. Oh, I do also want to mention that if I don't like the order, there is these buttons on the right where if I wanted to, I can move up or move down the order of how I have the fields showing on my screen. So on here will give me a list of information. So when I pull up the SmartList, it'll give me this information. But if I have it sitting on my screen for a little bit and I have users entering in the system, I can use the refresh button up on the top here, and I can click refresh, and it will go back and look to see my results or if anybody else has added information. Or like if there's sales transaction activity, you can monitor them by looking at the sales transactions and clicking refresh, and it'll automatically, when you refresh it, it'll go look in your system. So I like my smart list on how I have it. I'm looking at Chicago and I'm looking at just my specific zip code range. So now I have this and I want to save that. So I can use the favorites button, and what the favorites button is, if I click on that, I have a few different options I can do. So because my name was, I used the asterisk, the default one, I can change this and call it customers by Chicago. So I can name my object, and then from here I also have the capabilities of taking a look at the visible to. So if I want everybody in my system, specific company, user class, user ID, I have the capabilities from here as well. I'm okay with everybody seeing it in my system, so I'm just going to leave it to that. I also have the capabilities of adding it as a favorite, or I can also add a favorite and a reminder. So I'm going to do a reminder on here. So what this is going to do is when I create a reminder, when I log into the system based on my requirements, we'll set up a reminder when you first log into the system. So I can say that maybe I want to know when we have 5 customers from Chicago area. I can put this to a 5 in there. Or maybe I'm looking at the customer balances that we were talking about, the example before, and if I wanted to see some balance, some column, if I had results in here, like the credit limit is, or customer balance at a certain amount, I can do that as well. I also, if I did the number records, I can display the cues. So if I wanted to have an icon that increases or decreases in height based on the number of records in a certain category, I can mark that checkbox as well. So I'm going to say that I want to be notified when there's 5, and then I can click OK on here. So now my favorite is saved, and when I go look at my navigation over here on my list, I'll see my customers by Chicago, so I can click on a different one if I wanted to and go back, and I don't have to reset that up, and that will always be out there for me. So with these lists that you have in SmartList, so it's great I have this information, but how do I get it out of the system? Well, there is a number of different ways that you can get this information out. You can print it by clicking print. You can print to screen. You can do it to the printer. You can export it to a file. So if I do screen, it's going to open up a report writer report. I also have the capabilities of having it sent to Excel. So I can click on that and it will automatically open up Excel for me. So it puts it into a nice Excel list for me. I also have the capabilities of, if I wanted to send it to Word, I can do that. Or if I wanted to use the letter writing assistant, I can do that as well. So maybe I have a collection letter that I want to send out. I can click on the letter writing wizard and I can use a predefined one in the system and mark which ones I want to send to, if I choose to or not. And then, or if you don't like one of the predefined, you can modify those as well to change some of the wording on there as well. So it has a lot of powerful features in the system to be able to do that. There is also the capability of, if you have your SmartList, your default ones, if there's some, for some reason, you want some additional columns on there, you can go under Microsoft Dynamics GP, Tools, Setup, System, and SmartList Options. Here are some of the default settings. So let's say if I go look at my employee series. Maybe for my default one, I also want to add the employee class. I can mark that, and then when I click on that asterisk one to run, it will show on there by default. Or if I want to move up or down the columns, instead of creating a new favorite, I can add some of these fields as well. And then there's also the two other search defaults if I choose to do those. So that is also another nice feature. Instead of having to modify that one, you can just check the check boxes on those. So that is the main part of SmartList. So it's as you can see, it's a very powerful tool that you can use to get your data out of the system and report on. But now let's take a look at SmartList Designer. So what is SmartList Designer? SmartList Designer is a new feature that has been added to the core SmartList in Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013 SP2. And there is also additional features that were added also into R2 with it. It gives you the ability to modify the current SmartList to show more or less columns of information. Technically, with SmartList, you were able to see that we were able to add columns and take them away. This is just a little bit of a different way of doing it as far as, let's say you have you want to add third-party tables and you want to add those columns to it. You can do that with SmartList Designer. Or let's say you have another dictionary and you need to get the information from there, or we don't see a current field on the system that is in one of the predefined ones. How do you add it? You can use SmartList Designer to be able to do that. SmartList Designer will give you a very similar experience that Report Builder with the SQL reporting service has already today. So by leveraging that similar experience, it will reduce the learning curve of new reporting tools and allow you to integrate more of a stack technology within the application. So there are 3 ways to create a SmartList with SmartList Designer. You can make a copy of a current SmartList. You can create one from scratch. And you can also, if you're more technically inclined and if you prefer to do querying based off of SQL Studio Manager, you can use that as well to create a SQL script. So I'm in SmartList and I have the capability of creating the new one. I'm just going to click on the top here and you'll see this new button. If you click on that, that's going to open up SmartList Designer. So if I chose to do it this way, I would be able to create a brand new one from scratch that I would be able to pick what tables I want, do the linkings I want, just basically on your own. Another way you can do it is if, let's say I pick this SmartList here. And if I click New, what it's going to do is, you can see on here, it predefines the information that I already have on the system. And so in this SmartList. So let's say I want to create one that has the employee's email address on there. So I can just start typing in a name on here. And I have a few different options. So there's components to SmartList Designer. There's 6 different ones. So when I enter these in, when I do it from scratch, I have to select what my name is, the product that I want it to go under, and what series. So if, let's say, I didn't want it under payroll, I can put it under company if I want, but it makes sense to leave it under payroll, so I'm just going to do that. But so the different components is the database view. The database view will give you, it's an area that will display a tree view of the tables on here associated with the database that's currently logged in, that you're currently logged into. So I'll be able to see my core GP ones. These are some add-on. So there's fixed assets, human resources. These are different dictionaries associated with GP. I also, if I had third-party tables that are associated, I could be able to select them from here as well. If I expand out the Dynamics GP1, I'll see my tables, and then here bring up the series or the other modules as well. And so it'll give me all the list of the tables that are into the system. So for this example, by adding the email address, that's going to be under the company. So I'm going to click on expand the company view here. And these are a list of different tables, and it's the user-friendly way of seeing the tables. So I'm going to go and get the email address, and that's the internet address. And so from here, I'm going to add the email to address on, and it's going to give me my linkings to that as well. So it populates my fields by checking the checkbox here. It shows my selected fields, and these are going to be my fields in there. So I'll see that my internet address also added to the ones that were already on the system. From there, I can do my relationship. So I do have the capabilities of doing an auto link if I wanted to. And from there, I have, if I had something that the primary keys would see it matching, I can do that. But for this example, I'm just going to do it manually. So I'm going to select employees, and then I'm going to grab the employee ID. I have the capabilities of doing a left join, an inner join, or a cross join. For this example, I'm going to do a left join because I want to see everybody that are on my employee list, and then also show anything that has the employee address. So meaning if maybe some of my employees that don't have an email address in the system, I'll still be able to see those employees. If I did a inner join, that's going to mean that I want a one-to-one relationship. So it will only pull back the ones that have the email address. But for this case, I want to be able to see everyone. So I'm going to associate with the master ID on here. And then the nice feature about SmartList Designer is I can run a query before even saving it, and it will give me my results down on the bottom here. And I'll be able to see I have a couple that have my email addresses in here. So also from here, I have the capability of seeing the SQL query. So if you wanted to see what the SQL query did and maybe put it into an SRS report, or the system automatically wrote it for me, and so I don't have to have the technical skills to be able to create this view, which is nice. It makes it easier to use. I also have the capabilities in SmartList Designer if I wanted to do a calculated field. So I'm going to click on this button up on the top right up here. And from here I can add, create one if I wanted to. It will give me the tables that I have. I can do a function, I can do arithmetic, I can do text, date and time, math, aggregate. It just gives me a whole list of possibilities on what I could do. If maybe I wanted to do a constant, I could do a constant in here as well if I wanted to. And then when you hit save, what it's going to do, it's going to validate your expression to make sure that it's valid to be able to put on there. So when you hit save, it has that feature to take a look at that. So for this example, I don't need a calculation, but I wanted to mention that you do have the capabilities of doing that, adding the different functions and constants on the system. If I did have one in here, I could go back and edit it, or I could delete it if I chose to. So as you can see, it's a pretty powerful tool to be able to do that. Also, I mentioned in with GP 2013 R2, there was an enhancement made to the SmartList Designer, and that was this create a go-to, where when we looked at that customer and we double-clicked on it and opened up another window, that's what we do is it's called a go-to. And here you can see that it brought over the ones that were already assigned to this SmartList, so I don't have to recreate those. I also have the capabilities of doing double-clicking and opening it into a smart list or a navigation list or a web page. So I have the capabilities of doing that as well. So from here, I'm just going to hit OK, and that's going to create my smart list. Oh, I already have one called that, so let's call it test 2. So then you can see, because I put it under the payroll series, I can see my list in here, and then I'll also be able to see my email address in here. So because I did left, it said give me all my employees list, and then also find if there was anyone that had an email address. So from here, I have the capabilities now to send it to Excel or Word, or print it, or do the letter writing assistant. So you can see that there is a lot of different features in the system. If I also wanted to, I mentioned that if you wanted to do a SQL view, I have an example of, so here if I had a little bit more of a technical background, I could create a view and click execute, and creates my view, and then when I go back into SmartList Designer and I scroll down to my views, I'll be able to see all the views that are in the system. And if I expand out the company, because I ran that against my company database, it's going to open up all my views into the system here. And so right now it's just kind of taking a look to pull them in. This list is going to show you all the views in the system in alphabetical order. So my view was the check register, so what I can go down and I'll take a look for my check register view. And from here, I can, if I wanted to, I could select the checkbox and do all and mark all these, or maybe I don't want to do all those and I just want a couple of these. I can just do, by a click of the button, I can create my own view if I wanted to with the information into the system. So from here, if I wanted to run test 3 and I have it under the company, I can run my query and I can see in here that my view pulled my information. Maybe I want also, I don't want the audit code, but I want the amount. I can rerun that, and you can see by the click of a button I can see my results before having to deploy it out and run the smart list as well. I also have the capabilities of filtering. So maybe from here I always want to see my check register for my checkbook Uptown Trust. I could grab my checkbook ID and I could do a number of different conditions in here. So I could do like, not like, is, and these are a number of different conditions I could do. And so I could do like Uptown, and anything that starts with the Uptown will give me the information in here if I wanted to, and then this view would always be just for that checkbook ID. So this is just another way of doing a filter if you do want to always only see that specific one. So you have the capabilities of doing that in the system. So with that, I'm going to just hit OK because I don't want to do any specific additional linking to it. I just want to see what my view is here. So I'm going to hit OK, and then I'll see that it put it under my company database, and then I'm able to see all my information in here because I didn't filter on the Uptown Trust. It shows all my different checkbook IDs. I can now, if I wanted to, I could do my other filtering here back to where we did in SmartList as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention in the SmartList is there's a stop button. And so let's say I have 5,000 records and my max records were set to up here to 6,000. If I wanted to, I could hit it stop and then it would just stop how many records that it had processed at the time. But you could see that it was pretty fast on this one, so I didn't need to. The other thing that I wanted to mention is down here where it says complete. Before you print or export, just make sure that it says complete on here because then it will give you all the records on there. If you send it to Excel before that's complete, then you'll only get partial records to come across. It'll basically give you wherever what was pulled back at the time that you click that button. So I wanted to leave some time for questions. So I do see that it's 10:45. This is a good opportunity to be able to ask questions, or definitely reach out to Amy or Pete with that.
And thank you, Tara. There are a few questions that I want to read through here. You were talking before about entering in different, like the names of cities. For example, you were looking at all entries that have the word Chicago in it. And one of the questions that came up is whether the city or the word Chicago would come up if you are not capitalizing the first letter, C for Chicago.
So there is that match, that feature where when we are looking at customer in Chicago and you have that search criteria, you can match case. You have that feature in there as well if you wanted to use that.
Gotcha. Okay. Good. Could you also show an example of comparing GL and AP?
So as far as if you wanted to compare, I guess I would need a little bit more of an example on that, but like if you have so here's the financial series, and if you wanted to link to accounts payable, there's also some accounts payable in here. So depending on a specific SmartList, you could either take a look at the payables transactions here, or if you really wanted to link to a specific results, then maybe you could do a designer, I guess, without a specific example.
Okay.
So maybe take that one offline. If your customer would like to see a specific, that would be a good opportunity to reach out to Avastone, and they could assist with
Absolutely.
creating something for you.
Thank you. And I'm just reading through the questions right now. I want to see if, could you show balances for the end of the month?
So with the system, so there is like the sales that I was going to show you that there was. So some predefined ones like the customer over the credit limit, or customers that are past due on here. There's some predefined ones for the payables transactions. So like here's that past due payables. So if there's something in the SmartList, I would just recommend taking a look and seeing if there's any of these SmartLists that are predefined in the system. Because like there's also this past due customers. If you click on that, and I can see these past due ones. So definitely take a look at what you have in the system, because there might be some that are already created for you that you don't have to reinvent the wheel on here. So here's just an example of like the past due customers that came with the system.
Good, okay. One question I'm seeing here is, okay. Another question came in is about the text field. And Sarah had mentioned that that they have added, the text field as a customization to the system, and it holds over 1,000 characters. But she can pull the field up on SmartList, but when exporting to Excel, it truncates that export to 250 characters. Is there any way around that, or is there a limitation?
That is a great question. I would have to test that to see that functionality on if it's truncating or if there's a setting on that. So what I'd recommend is letting Avastone, I don't know if you know who that question came from.
Yes, and I'm writing that down.
Okay, and then we can follow up and just double check to see that correct functionality on that one. So that is a great question. I'll take note on that one.
Okay, thank you. And then also here's a quick one. Can you show us how to format the columns so when you're exporting to Excel that you don't have to change the Excel columns or that format every single time?
So depending on the format, so out of the system here, there are some predefined ones in the system. And so from here, when I send it to Excel, based on what that information is in there, it's going to show the results like this. This is the functionality on how it's going to be set in the system. So if they're, I'm guessing they're wanting to see like the dollar sign in front of here, and there is a possible workaround to be able to get that, but a majority of the clients like to see it with the numbers, and that's kind of how the functionality is with the system on here. I think that was part of the question. Otherwise, if you are in SmartList Designer, you have the capability of, let me pull up. Let's see, that one doesn't have it, but you have the capability of changing the format, and I don't see it on here, but if I had one, like if it was a currency, there would be an icon on the left here, and then I would be able to double click on that, and I would be able to change it to the currency model, and if it was like a Canadian symbol that I want, or a dollar sign for US dollar, I'll be able to see the icon on the left here and then be able to change it from that. This one that I grabbed doesn't have the currency view it on there, but you could do it in here.
Okay. One other question. Let me just take a look here. This one seems pretty appropriate. How are the smart lists designed? How are the designed smart lists stored? Are they stored in one of the GP dictionaries?
It would be stored into Dynamics GP, into the tables. So yes, this information is stored out in the tables.
Okay.
They have their own smart list tables. If there's certain specific tables that you want, we can share that. I just didn't have that on the side just because I wasn't going to go into too technical of presentation.
Okay. Another question, on the payroll side, are all of the fields added in the UPR 100 file? Are those added to SmartList finally?
As far as, so the payroll portion over here, let me grab that. So what you see here, this employees one, this one is actually pulling from an employees view that was predefined in the system, and so that pulls a number of different predefined fields. But if you're looking at wanting a specific field that you don't see in there, you can definitely go and modify that one or create a new one and select the UPR 100, which is the payroll maintenance table. So if I expand this one out, I'd be able to go down and select the payroll maintenance, and that will give me all the fields out of the UPR 00100 table. I think the question was here, this one is a view, so this is a little bit of a different, not necessarily the UPR 100, it's the employee's view, so that's probably where the difference is. So you can definitely get that information in the system here.
Good, thank you. Going back to SmartList, outside of SmartList Designer, but with SmartList, could you show one of the formulas that are in SmartList?
So the formulas come inside of SmartList Designer. So the formulas, if you want to create a custom one, you would do it in SmartList Designer. You have the capability of searching inside here, but as far as a calculation, that would be done through SmartList Designer.
Okay. Good. I'm just paging through some of these questions. Okay. Good. Thank you, Tara. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you want to mention overall with what we were just speaking about with SmartList Designer?
No, well, just basically if you guys have questions on it that maybe we didn't touch or, hey, I just saw that and how do I do that again, definitely reach out to your partner. They're very knowledgeable on the system, and if for some reason they have a question, they can always reach out to us. So that's what we're here for, to assist as well. But with that, I do appreciate you guys spending the time with me this morning, and I'll give it back to you, Pete.
Great, and I appreciate that. If you want to turn control back over to me here.
Let's see.
Here we go. Okay. And Tara, thank you again, as we talked before. Thank you for your presentation today. As a reminder to everyone, your feedback is appreciated. Stay right here to provide your thoughts for today's session. We do value your thoughts and your feedback regarding that. And that feedback form will appear momentarily on your web browser. Throughout this session, I have been taking note of all submitted questions, and I will ensure to provide those answers to you individually ASAP. On your screen, you will see the contact information for both myself and my colleague, Miss Amy Aschenbrenner. We are here as a resource to you, so please do call us with any need that you may have. Tara, thank you again for your time. Thank you to everyone for your participation, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.